The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Hayes mansion, casting long shadows across the marble floors that Victoria Stone had been scrubbing since 5 in the morning. Her knees ached from hours of work, but she couldn't afford to slow down. Every dollar she earned from cleaning houses in the wealthy Hillcrest neighborhood went toward her grandmother's medical bills. Victoria paused to wipe the sweat from her brow, her dark hair escaping from the tight ponytail she'd wrestled it into before dawn. At 28, she possessed a quiet beauty that no amount of exhaustion could completely mask. Her green eyes held a determination that had carried her through 3 years of caring for Rose. Her grandmother, who had raised her after her parents, died in a car accident, the sound of expensive Italian leather shoes clicking against marble made Victoria look up from her position on the floor. Benjamin Hayes stood in the doorway of his home office, his tall frame filling the space. Even at 8 in the morning, he looked impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Victoria made in 6 months. "You're early today," Benjamin observed, his voice carrying a weariness that seemed at odds with his successful appearance. Victoria scrambled to her feet, smoothing down her simple blue uniform. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes. I can come back later if you prefer." "No, it's fine." Benjamin ran a hand through his dark hair, revealing the stress lines around his eyes. "Actually, I'm glad you're here. I need to ask you something." Victoria felt her stomach tighten with anxiety. Now he seemed agitated, almost desperate. Benjamin paced to the window, overlooking his perfectly manicured gardens. "You probably think this is crazy, but I need a favor. A big one." "What kind of favor, sir?" Victoria's voice came out smaller than she intended. "I need you to be my date tonight." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Victoria blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Benjamin turned to face her, his blue eyes intense. "There's a charity gala tonight, the biggest social event of the year. I was supposed to attend with my fiancée, but she..." He paused, pain flickering across his features. "Let's just say, she won't be joining me." Victoria's mind raced. She'd read about Benjamin Hayes in magazines and newspapers. The 32-year-old had built a tech empire worth billions, revolutionizing how people connected through social media platforms. He dated models and socialites, women who belonged in his world of private jets and exclusive parties. "Mr. Hayes, I think there's been some confusion. I'm your housekeeper. I clean floors and bathrooms. I don't attend charity galas. It's exactly why I'm asking you." Benjamin stepped closer, and Victoria caught the scent of his cologne, expensive and masculine. "Everyone expects me to show up with some vapid heiress or social climber. But you're real, Victoria. You're honest. When you look at me, you don't see dollar signs or business opportunities." Victoria shook her head, overwhelmed. I wouldn't know how to act at something like that. I'd embarrass you." "You couldn't embarrass me more than Julia did." The bitterness in Benjamin's voice was unmistakable. "Besides, all you have to do is stand next to me, smile occasionally, and let me introduce you as my guest. It's nothing more complicated than that. But I don't have anything to wear to a charity gala. My nicest dress is from a thrift store." Benjamin waved dismissively. "I'll handle that. There's a boutique downtown that can have you fitted and ready by this afternoon. Everything will be taken care of." Victoria felt trapped between desperation and impossibility. The logical part of her mind screamed that this was insane. She didn't belong in Benjamin's world, and pretending otherwise would only lead to humiliation. But another part of her, the part that lay awake at night worrying about Rose's mounting medical bills, whispered about the opportunities this might present. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "You must know dozens of women who would jump at the chance to attend this gala with you." Benjamin's expression softened slightly. "Because you're the only person in my life who treats me like a human being instead of a bank account. When you clean my office, you're careful with my things, not because they're expensive, but because they belong to someone. When I've had a bad day and snap at you unfairly, you don't file a lawsuit or demand compensation. Just keep working." Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks. She'd never realized he'd noticed such small details about her behavior. "There's something else," Benjamin continued. "I'll pay you $5,000 for the evening." Victoria's breath caught in her throat. $5,000 would cover Rose's medications for 3 months, maybe 4, if she was careful with other expenses. It would mean not having to choose between grocery money and prescription costs. "You're serious about this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dead serious?" "Victoria, I know this is unusual, but I'm desperate. Tonight's gala isn't just a social event. Thomas Kane, one of my biggest competitors, will be there. He's been spreading rumors about my company's financial instability ever since Julia left me. If I show up alone, it'll look like confirmation that my personal life is falling apart and affecting my business judgment." Victoria thought about Rose, who had sacrificed everything to raise her after her parents' death. Her grandmother had worked 2 jobs to put Victoria through high school, never complaining about the long hours or the exhaustion. Now, Rose was bedridden with emphysema, dependent on expensive medications and treatments that Medicare only partially covered. "What would I have to do exactly?" Victoria asked. Relief flooded Benjamin's features. "Just be my companion for the evening. We'll arrive together, mingle for a few hours, and leave. I'll introduce you as Victoria Stone, which is your real name. If anyone asks what you do, you can say you work in residential services. It's technically true. And you'll really pay me $5,000? I'll write you a check right now. If you want." Benjamin moved to his desk and pulled out his checkbook. "Consider it a bonus for exceptional service." Victoria watched him write her name with bold, confident strokes. The amount made her hands tremble when he handed her the check. $5,000. More money than she'd ever held at one time. "There's just one condition," Benjamin added. "If we're going to pull this off, you need to be completely comfortable around me. No more Mr. Hayes or formal distance. Tonight, we're equals attending a social function together." Victoria nodded slowly, folding the check carefully and tucking it into her uniform pocket. "Okay, Benjamin, I'll do it." The smile that spread across his face transformed him completely. Gone was the stressed, desperate businessman, replaced by someone younger and more hopeful. "The boutique is called Elegant Affairs on 5th Street. Tell them Benjamin Hayes sent you, and that money is no object. Get whatever you need. Dress. Shoes, accessories, hair, makeup, everything." He pulled out his phone and typed rapidly. "I'm sending them your information now. They'll be expecting you at noon." Victoria glanced at the clock on the wall. It was already 9:30, and she still had 2 more houses to clean before noon. "I should finish my work first. Forget about the other houses today. This is more important." Benjamin's tone brooked no argument. "I'll call your cleaning service and explain that you're handling a special project for me." As Victoria gathered her cleaning supplies, her mind whirled with the impossibility of what she'd agreed to. In 8 hours, she would be walking into a world of wealth and privilege she'd only seen in movies and magazines. She would be wearing a dress that cost more than her monthly rent, surrounded by people who had never worried about choosing between medications and meals. "Victoria," Benjamin called as she reached the door. She turned back to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." Walking to her beat-up Honda Civic, Victoria felt as if she were living someone else's life. The check in her pocket seemed to burn against her skin, a tangible reminder that in a few hours she would step into a fairy tale that could change everything. But as she drove toward her grandmother's house to check on Rose before heading to the boutique, Victoria couldn't shake the feeling that fairy tales often came with a price that wasn't immediately apparent. Benjamin Hayes was offering her a glimpse into a world of luxury and possibility. But worlds like his had rules she didn't understand and consequences she couldn't predict. The only thing she knew for certain was that tonight would change her life forever. Whether that change would be a blessing or a curse remained to be seen. Victoria stood in front of the full-length mirror at Elegant Affairs, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The emerald green silk gown hugged her curves in all the right places, its elegant simplicity making her look sophisticated, rather than overdressed. The boutique staff had worked magic with her hair, transforming her usual ponytail into an elegant updo with soft tendrils framing her face. Professional makeup had enhanced her natural beauty without making her look artificial. "You look stunning, dear," said Patricia, the boutique owner who had personally overseen Victoria's transformation. Mr. Hayes has excellent taste. Victoria touched the delicate diamond earrings that Benjamin had insisted on including. I feel like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life. Sometimes the best way to discover who you really are is to step outside your comfort zone, Patricia replied knowingly. The car Mr. Hayes sent should be here any moment. Through the boutique window, Victoria watched a sleek black limousine pull up to the curb. Her stomach fluttered with nervousness as the uniformed driver stepped out and approached the shop entrance. Ride to Benjamin's mansion passed in a blur of perfectly manicured lawns and imposing gates. Victoria tried to calm her racing heart by focusing on practical concerns. She would stay close to Benjamin, speak only when spoken to, and remember that this was just a job, very well-paying, completely surreal job. Benjamin was waiting in his foyer when she arrived, and the look on his face when she entered made her breath catch. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that emphasized his tall, athletic frame. But it was the expression in his blue eyes that made Victoria feel truly beautiful for the first time in years. "You look incredible," he said softly, offering his arm. "Are you ready for this? As ready as someone can be for something they've never done before?" Victoria replied. Accepting his escort, the charity gala was being held at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, the city's most prestigious venue. As their limousine joined the line of luxury cars dropping off guests, Victoria watched through tinted windows as photographers captured arrivals on the red carpet. "There are going to be cameras," she said, a note of panic creeping into her voice. "Just smile and stay close to me," Benjamin assured her. "We'll be through the entrance in less than 2 minutes." The flash of cameras was blinding as they stepped from the limousine. Victoria gripped Benjamin's arm tighter, overwhelmed by the chaos of shouted questions and clicking shutters. She heard Benjamin's name called repeatedly, along with questions. About his mystery companion? "Benjamin, who's your beautiful date tonight?" one photographer called out. "This is Victoria Stone," Benjamin replied smoothly, his hand warm and steadying on her back. "Victoria, this is organized chaos at its finest." Despite her nervousness, Victoria found herself smiling genuinely at his comment. The cameras captured the moment, and she realized that for the first time all evening, she felt natural instead of terrified. The hotel ballroom took Victoria's breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across walls draped in gold silk. Round tables were adorned with towering floral arrangements, and a live orchestra played softly from a raised platform. Hundreds of elegantly dressed guests mingled there, jewelry catching the light like scattered stars. "Victoria, I'd like you to meet David Chen, my assistant and closest friend," Benjamin said as a young Asian man approached them. David's warm smile immediately put Victoria at ease. "It's wonderful to meet you, Victoria. Benjamin's told me so much about you." Victoria shot Benjamin a questioning look. How much could he have told David when he'd only asked her this morning? "David helped coordinate your boutique appointment," Benjamin explained. "He also ran interference with the press about tonight." Before Victoria could ask what that meant, a woman's voice cut through the ambient conversation like a blade. "Well, Benjamin Hayes, with a date. How unexpected," Victoria turned to see a stunning blonde woman approaching, her red dress probably costing more than Victoria's car. Everything about her screamed wealth and privilege, from her perfectly styled hair to her flawless makeup to the diamond necklace that could have paid Rose's medical bills for years. "Julia," Benjamin said, his voice carefully neutral. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I'm here with Thomas Kane," Julia replied, her eyes sizing up Victoria with unconcealed disdain. "He's been so supportive during this difficult transition in my life." Victoria felt Benjamin tense beside her. This was clearly the ex-fiancé whose betrayal had prompted tonight's arrangement. "And you are?"
"Ow,"
Julia asked Victoria directly, her tone suggesting she was addressing hired help. "Victoria Stone," Victoria replied, lifting her chin slightly. Something about Julia's condescending attitude sparked a defiance she didn't know she possessed. "How lovely. And what do you do, Victoria?" "Work in residential services," Victoria answered, using Benjamin's suggested phrasing. "How interesting." Julia's smile was sharp as glass. "I'm in acquisitions myself. I acquire things that other people value." The double meaning wasn't lost on Victoria. Julia was staking a claim, suggesting that Benjamin was just another acquisition she could reclaim whenever she chose. Julia always did have a talent for identifying valuable assets, Benjamin said coolly, though she sometimes misjudged their true worth. A man approached their group, tall and distinguished with silver hair and calculating eyes. Victoria recognized him from business magazines as Thomas Kane, Benjamin's competitor. "Benjamin, good to see you," Thomas said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I see you've brought a guest tonight. How refreshing to see you socializing." Again, the emphasis on again made it clear that everyone knew about Benjamin's recent heartbreak and its potential impact on his business. "Thomas, I'd like you to meet Victoria Stone," Benjamin said, his hand moving protectively to Victoria's lower back. Thomas's appraising gaze made Victoria uncomfortable, as if he were calculating her net worth and finding her lacking. Thomas said dismissively before turning back to Benjamin, "I trust you're weathering recent changes well. The market can be so unpredictable when personal matters interfere with business judgment. Business judgment has never been better," Benjamin replied smoothly. "Sometimes it takes a significant change in perspective to see opportunities that were previously invisible." Victoria sensed undercurrents in the conversation that she didn't fully understand, but she could feel the tension radiating from Benjamin. "If you'll excuse us," Benjamin said, guiding Victoria away from the group, "I promised Victoria a dance." The dance floor was populated by couples moving gracefully to a waltz. Victoria felt panic flutter in her chest. "I don't know how to waltz," she whispered urgently. "Just follow my lead," Benjamin murmured, drawing her into his arms. "Trust me." Being held close to Benjamin felt surprisingly natural. His hand was warm and sure at her waist, his other hand gently holding hers. Victoria found herself following his movements instinctively, their bodies finding a rhythm that seemed to exist independent of the music. "You're a natural," Benjamin said softly, his breath warm against her ear. "I think you're just a good teacher." They danced in comfortable silence for several minutes, and Victoria found herself forgetting about the watchful eyes surrounding them. In Benjamin's arms, she felt graceful and desired, worthy of the beautiful dress and elegant setting. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said as the song began to wind down. "Anything?" "Julia, how long were you together?" Benjamin's expression tightened slightly. 3 years. They were supposed to be married next month. "What happened?" "Discovered. She was feeding information about my company to Thomas Kane. Our relationship was apparently part of a long-term business strategy to gain access to my trade secrets and client lists." Victoria felt a surge of anger on his behalf. "It's horrible." "The worst part wasn't the betrayal," Benjamin admitted. "It was realizing that nothing between us had been real. Every intimate moment, every declaration of love, every plan we made for the future, all of it was calculated manipulation." Victoria understood now why he'd needed someone genuine for tonight. Someone whose motives weren't tangled up in business or social climbing. "I'm sorry," she said simply.
Oh.
"No one deserves to have their trust violated like that." Benjamin looked down at her with something that might have been surprise. "Most people tell me I should just move on, that I'm better off without her." "Maybe you are better off, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Being betrayed by someone you love changes how you see the world." The music ended, but they remained on the dance floor for a moment longer, lost in each other's eyes. Victoria felt something shifting between them, an awareness that went beyond their business arrangement. "Benjamin," a sharp female voice interrupted. They turned to see an elegantly dressed older woman approaching, her expression disapproving. "Mother," Benjamin said with resignation. "Victoria, this is my mother, Margaret Hayes." "Mother, Victoria Stone." Margaret's greeting was polite but chilly. "Miss Stone, how lovely to meet you. I don't believe I've seen you at any of our usual gatherings." "This is my first time attending an event like this," Victoria replied honestly. "How refreshing," Margaret said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "Benjamin, might I speak with you privately for a moment?" Victoria watched mother and son move to a quiet corner, noting the animated conversation and Margaret's frequent glances in her direction. It didn't take much imagination to guess what they were discussing. When Benjamin returned, his jaw was said in a hard line. "I'm sorry about that," he said. "My mother has strong opinions about appropriate social circles." "She thinks I don't belong here," Victoria stated rather than asked. "She thinks a lot of things that don't matter to me," Benjamin replied firmly. But Victoria could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. The fairy tale was beginning to show its cracks, revealing the reality of the gulf between their worlds. The rest of the evening passed in a whirlwind of introductions, conversations, and careful navigation of social landmines. Victoria found herself relaxing as the night progressed, discovering that many of the wealthy attendees were simply people with expensive clothes and complicated lives. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, evaluated, and found wanting by those who knew she didn't belong in their rarefied world. As their limousine pulled away from the hotel near midnight, Victoria finally allowed herself to breathe fully. "So," Benjamin said, loosening his bow tie, "what did you think of your first charity gala?" "It was like visiting another planet," Victoria replied honestly. "Beautiful, but completely foreign." "You were perfect tonight," Benjamin said seriously. "You handled every situation with grace and dignity. I couldn't have asked for a better companion." Victoria felt warmth spread through her chest at his praise. "Even when your mother clearly disapproved of me, especially then, you didn't try to ingratiate yourself or pretend to be something you're not. That kind of authenticity is rare in my world." The limousine pulled up to Victoria's modest apartment complex, a jarring contrast to the evening's luxury. Benjamin walked her to her door, the fairy tale officially ending as they stood on her cracked concrete steps. "Thank you," he said softly. "Tonight meant more to me than you realize." "Thank you for the experience," Victoria replied, "and for the generous payment. It's going to make a real difference for my grandmother." They stood there for a moment, neither wanting to break the spell completely. Then Benjamin leaned down and kissed her cheek gently. "Good night, Victoria Stone." As Victoria watched the limousine disappear into the night, she touched her cheek where his lips had been. Tomorrow, she would return to her life of house cleaning and medical bills. But tonight had shown her a different version of herself, one who could hold her own in any setting. What she didn't know was that their evening together had been photographed extensively, and by morning, pictures of Benjamin Hayes and his mystery date would be splashed across society pages and social media, setting in motion events that would change both their lives forever. Victoria woke the next morning to her phone buzzing incessantly on her nightstand. Groggily, she reached for it, squinting at the bright screen showing dozens of missed calls and text messages. Her heart sank as she read the first few notifications. "Victoria, honey, you need to see this?" came a text from her neighbor, James Mitchell, followed by a link to the city's major newspaper website, the headline Maid. Victoria's blood run cold. Tech billionaire Benjamin Hayes steps out with mystery woman. Below it was a large photo of her and Benjamin on the red carpet, her hand on his arm, both of them smiling. She looked beautiful and confident in the image, but all she could think about was how exposed she now felt. Her phone rang, and Rose's weak voice came through the speaker. "Victoria, dear, there are reporters outside our building. They keep asking questions about you." Panic flooded Victoria's system. "I'll be right over, Grandma. Don't answer the door or talk to anyone." Victoria threw on clothes and rushed to Rose's apartment across town, her mind racing with the implications of the media attention. When she arrived, she found 3 news vans parked outside the modest senior living facility where her grandmother resided. A reporter spotted Victoria getting out of her car and immediately approached with a cameraman in tow. "Ah, Miss Stone, can you tell us about your relationship with Benjamin Hayes? How long have you been dating?" "No comment," Victoria said firmly, pushing past them toward the building entrance. "Is it true you work as a housekeeper? What's it like dating someone worth billions when you clean houses for a living?" Victoria felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. The reporter's questions made her sound like some kind of gold digger, reducing her to a stereotype she'd never wanted to represent. Inside Rose's apartment, her grandmother sat in her favorite chair, with the newspaper spread across her lap, studying the photos with a magnifying glass. "You look beautiful, dear," Rose said with a proud smile. "Just like your mother did when she was your age. Grandma, this is a disaster. Never meant for any of this to happen." Rose patted the couch beside her chair. Sit down and tell me what's really going on. Victoria explained the arrangement she'd made with Benjamin, the charity gala, and the $5,000 payment that would cover Rose's medications. As she spoke, she watched her grandmother's expression shift from curiosity to understanding. And you have feelings for this man, Rose observed. It wasn't a question. Victoria felt tears threaten to spill over. It doesn't matter what I feel. Look at this chaos. We're from completely different worlds and everyone can see it. Different worlds don't mean incompatible hearts, Rose said. Gently. Your grandfather was a factory worker when I met him. My parents thought I was throwing my life away by marrying beneath my station. That's different, Grandma. Benjamin Hayes is a billionaire. I clean toilets for a living. Rose's expression grew stern. Victoria Stone, I raised you better than to diminish yourself like that. You're a college graduate who chose honest work. To care for family, there's no shame in that, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Victoria's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Benjamin. She hesitated before answering. Victoria, I just saw the news coverage. I'm so sorry. I never expected this level of media attention. Your world comes with reporters and photographers, Benjamin. I should have realized that. Where are you? I can send security to help manage the situation. The offer was tempting, but Victoria knew accepting would only make her look more like someone who needed rescuing. I'm with my grandmother. We'll figure it out. Can I see you later? We need to talk about this. Victoria glanced at Rose, who was watching her with knowing eyes. I'll call you this afternoon. After hanging up, Victoria spent the morning helping Rose with her medications and physical therapy exercises. The simple routine provided comfort amidst the chaos of unwanted attention. Around noon, James Mitchell knocked on the apartment door. A kind widower in his 50s who lived in the same building, James had become a trusted friend to both women over the years. The reporters are gone for now, he reported. But I thought you should know they've been asking other residents about you and your grandmother. What kind of questions? Victoria asked. Financial stuff, mostly. Whether you've seemed to have more money lately, if you've talked about dating anyone wealthy. James's expression was sympathetic. Don't worry, nobody's saying anything that would hurt you. I appreciate you looking out for us, James. That's what neighbors do. Besides, from what I can see in these photos, that young man looks at you like you hung the moon. Money can't buy that kind of expression. Victoria felt her cheeks warm. It's complicated. The best things usually are, Rose chimed in from her chair. That afternoon, Victoria met Benjamin at a small coffee shop across town, away from his usual haunts and the media attention. He looked tired and stressed, his usual composure showing. Cracks. This is all my fault, he said immediately when she sat down. I should have anticipated the media interest. You warned me there would be cameras at the event. I just didn't think about what would happen afterward. The photos are everywhere. Social media, news, websites, entertainment blogs. Everyone's trying to figure out who you are and why I'm with you. Victoria took a sip of her coffee, tasting bitterness that had nothing to do with the beverage. And what are they concluding? That you're either a gold digger who's trapped a vulnerable billionaire, or some kind of social experiment I'm conducting? The bluntness of his words stung, even though Victoria knew he was simply reporting what others were saying. Neither of those scenarios paints me in a very flattering light, she said quietly. Victoria, I don't care what they say. Last night was the first time in months that I felt like myself again. You made me remember what it's like to be with someone genuine. But this attention, this scrutiny, it's not sustainable. I can't live under a microscope. Benjamin leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. What if you didn't have to hide? What if we made this real? Victoria felt her heart skip a beat. What are you saying? I'm saying that what started as a business arrangement has become something more, at least for me. I care about you, Victoria. I want to see where this could lead. Benjamin, be realistic. Your mother made it clear I don't belong in your social circle. Your ex-fiancée looked at me like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe. And now, the media is painting me as either a user or a charity case. None of that matters to me. It should matter to you. It affects your business, your reputation, your relationships. Benjamin was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. You're right that it's complicated, but running away from something good because it's difficult isn't the answer. I'm not running away. I'm being practical. Are you? Or are you scared? The question hit closer to home than Victoria wanted to admit. She was scared of getting hurt, of being publicly humiliated, falling for someone whose world would never fully accept her. Maybe I am scared, she admitted. But that doesn't make my concerns invalid. Before Benjamin could respond, Victoria's phone rang. Rose's facility was calling. Victoria, you need to come quickly, said Nancy, the facility manager. Your grandmother had a respiratory episode. She's being taken to the hospital. Victoria's world tilted. Which hospital? I'll be right there. St. Mary's Emergency. The paramedic said she was asking for you. Victoria stood abruptly, gathering her purse with shaking hands. I have to go. My grandmother, I heard, Benjamin said, standing as well. Let me drive you. You don't have to, Victoria, please. Let me help. The ride to the hospital passed in a blur of city streets and worried silence. Victoria stared out the window, her mind racing with fear and guilt. She'd been so caught up in the chaos of media attention that she'd missed signs that Rose might be having health problems. At the hospital, they found Rose in the emergency room, connected to oxygen and looking frailer than Victoria had ever seen. Dr. Emma Phillips, Rose's pulmonologist, was reviewing her chart when they arrived. How is she? Victoria asked immediately. Stable for now, but her lung function has declined significantly. We need to discuss adjusting her treatment plan and considering more intensive care options. Victoria felt Benjamin's presence behind her, solid and comforting. When Dr. Phillips began explaining the various treatment options and their associated costs, Victoria's heart sank. Even with insurance, the expenses would be astronomical. I need some time to think about the financial aspects, Victoria said. Quietly, of course. We'll keep her comfortable tonight, and we can discuss next steps in the morning. She smiled when she saw Victoria and Benjamin together. You came, she whispered to Benjamin. That's good. She needs someone, Grandma. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. I'm tired, sweetheart. So tired. Rose's eyes drifted to Benjamin. Take care of her. Know she's stronger than she thinks. But she needs someone who sees her worth. Benjamin took Rose's hand gently. I see it, Mrs. Stone. I promise you, I see it. As Rose drifted off to sleep, Victoria and Benjamin sat in the uncomfortable hospital chairs, processing the weight of the day's events. The treatment she needs, Victoria said quietly. They're going to cost more than I can possibly afford. Victoria, please don't offer to pay for it. I can't accept that kind of help from you. Why not? I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Why shouldn't it go toward helping someone who matters to you? Because it would change everything between us. I'd never know if your feelings were real or if you were just taking care of an obligation. Benjamin was quiet for several minutes, staring at the sleeping figure of Rose surrounded by medical equipment. What if there was a way to help without it coming between us? He said finally. What do you mean? I've been thinking about starting a foundation focused on healthcare access for working families. People who make too much to qualify for aid, but not enough to afford major medical expenses. Rose could be one of the first beneficiaries. Victoria looked at him suspiciously. You'd start an entire foundation just to help my grandmother. I'd start a foundation because it's the right thing to do. The fact that it helps Rose is a bonus. Despite everything, Victoria found herself smiling. You're determined to be my hero, aren't you? I'm determined to be someone worthy of you, whether you'll let me or not. The next morning brought a visit from Detective Rodriguez, who was investigating a fraud case involving several prominent businessmen. Victoria was surprised when he asked to speak with Benjamin privately. It's about Thomas Kane and some of his business associates, the detective explained. We have reason to believe they've been involved in money laundering and corporate fraud. Your name came up in some communications we've intercepted. Victoria watched Benjamin's face grow serious as he processed this information. What kind of communications? References to neutralizing your competitive advantage? Discussions about discrediting you professionally? There's also mention of using personal relationships to gather intelligence. Benjamin's jaw tightened. Julia, your ex-fiancée appears to have been providing them with inside information about your company for quite some time. But we also found something interesting. Discussions about your new relationship and how to use it against you. Victoria felt ice form in her stomach. Use it how? They've been digging into your background, looking for anything they could use to embarrass Mr. Hayes publicly. When they couldn't find any real dirt, they started considering manufacturing some. Manufacturing how? Benjamin demanded. Fake financial records, suggesting you've been paying Ms. Stone for services beyond housekeeping, if you catch my meaning. Photos taken out of context, fabricated witness statements. They want to paint her as a prostitute you've been keeping. Victoria felt sick. The ugly implications of the detective's words made her realize how naive she'd been about the dangers of Benjamin's world. For building a case against Kane and his associates, Detective Rodriguez continued. But I wanted to warn you both to be careful. Desperate people do desperate things. After the detective left, Victoria and Benjamin sat in stunned silence. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Victoria said finally. Your world comes with enemies who will destroy anyone to get to you. They won't succeed. We have evidence of their plans now. Benjamin, don't you see? It doesn't matter if they succeed or not. The mere attempt will ruin my reputation and hurt people I care about. My grandmother doesn't deserve to have her final days overshadowed by scandal. Benjamin moved closer to her, taking her hands in his. So what do you want to do? Victoria looked toward Rose's room, where her grandmother slept peacefully under the influence of pain medication. She thought about the media attention, the social pressure, the business complications, and the very real dangers that came with loving someone like Benjamin Hayes. Then she thought about the way he'd held her while they danced. The genuine concern in his eyes when Rose was brought to the hospital, and the foundation he was willing to create to help families like hers. I want to fight, she said quietly. I want to fight for my grandmother, for us, and for the right to love someone regardless of what the world thinks about it. Benjamin's smile was radiant. Then we fight together. 3 months later, Victoria stood in the garden of Benjamin's mansion, wearing a simple white dress and holding a bouquet of roses from Rose's favorite garden. Her grandmother, stronger after receiving the best medical care available through the Benjamin Hayes Healthcare Foundation, sat in the front row, beaming with pride. The wedding was small, attended only by people who truly mattered to them. Mitchell walked Victoria down the aisle, tears of happiness streaming down his face. David Chen served as Benjamin's best man, while Dr. Phillips would become a close friend during Rose's treatment, served as Victoria's maid of honor, as Benjamin took her hands and promised to love her regardless of what challenges they faced. Victoria realized that sometimes the greatest fairy tales were the ones that acknowledged the difficulties of love while choosing it anyway. In the end, they had learned that love wasn't about finding someone from the same world, but about creating a new world together, one where wealth and poverty, privilege and struggle could coexist in service of something greater than either person could achieve alone. The foundation grew to help thousands of families. Thomas Kane was convicted of fraud and sentenced to prison, and Julia faded into obscurity. But none of that mattered as much as the simple truth Victoria discovered that day in the hospital. Real love doesn't eliminate life's complications. It makes them worth facing. As she and Benjamin kissed to seal their union, Victoria heard Rose's whispered words carried on the wind. Some worlds are worth crossing for love, my dear. Some worlds are worth crossing. The end.